For the final 10 minutes of the A24 horror film Undertone, the screen goes into a total blackout. The audience is left with nothing but the audio of a woman trapped in a dark house with her dying mother, screaming at an entity that never appears on screen. When the credits roll, the audience immediately splits. Half the theater is convinced they just witnessed a supernatural possession by an ancient demon. The other half is certain they just watched a daughter suffer a complete psychotic break, triggered by the trauma of hospice care. This cinematic deadlock creates a scenario where two people can sit in the same room, listen to the same audio, and walk away living in two entirely different versions of reality. This exact conflict plays out daily in the real world. On the r/paranormal subreddit, a user recently documented a series of physical encounters with neighbors they believe are practicing demons. This diagram illustrates the physical sensations reported by the user. They describe a spirit entering their lower back, inducing power contractions that pulse through the nervous system. But the comments section ignores supernatural claims, pointing to a neurological misfire and untreated schizophrenia. The original poster reacted by explicitly demanding that only fellow experiencers respond. They dismissed the psychiatric advice as a worn-out song and dance, effectively closing the door on any explanation that didn't validate their own senses. The true tension in this thread isn't the presence of a ghost. It is the total isolation of a person whose reality has become a disease in the eyes of their community. Skeptics use a specific scientific toolkit to explain away the paranormal. They cite sleep paralysis to explain a figure standing in the corner, or exploding head syndrome to account for the sudden phantom bangs heard in an empty house. They point to hypnopompic hallucinations, visual and auditory glitches that happen during the transition from sleep to waking. For those experiencing them, the boundary between a dream and the bedroom wall effectively ceases to exist. Conditions like schizophrenia often develop with a slow, grinding momentum. Over years, the brain integrates these sensory errors into a person's logic so seamlessly that the individual never notices the moment their reality shifted. From the perspective of the experiencer, however, a clinical diagnosis feels like a hostile attempt to revoke their own agency. To them, the demon is a lived physical fact, not a symptom to be medicated away. Some users argue that Western society relies on a medical model that pathologizes events other cultures have historically viewed as spiritual or shamanic. They see the mental illness label as a rigid tool used to silence anything that doesn't fit a biological binary. This clash leaves the individual trapped. They are forced to choose between accepting a medical identity that labels them broken or a spiritual identity that leaves them entirely alone. The filmmakers of Undertone built their story around these clinical mechanics. They used the symptoms of psychological collapse as the primary tools for their horror. By stripping away CGI monsters, the audience hears the world like someone with auditory hallucinations. External noises actually originate from the center of the brain. The film layers specific triggers: caregiving exhaustion, unplanned pregnancy, religious guilt, compressing her perception into chaotic static. This framing forces the audience into the role of the Reddit skeptic. We spend 90 minutes searching the background for a demon, only to realize we might just be watching a mind dismantle itself. A physical monster offers the chance for a ritual or a weapon. But a psychological collapse offers no such catharsis, because once the psyche begins to fragment, there is no reliable way to distinguish the savior from the threat. The final moments for the protagonist in Undertone and the real-life Paranormal poster are remarkably similar. Whether the root cause is an ancient deity or a neurochemical imbalance, the result is the same. The person is no longer a participant in the world the rest of us share. This is the state of total isolation. The ground of shared experience fractures and drifts away, leaving the individual stranded on an island of perception that no one else can reach. Communities like Paranormal act as a final plea for connection. They exist because humans are inherently terrified of being trapped in a reality that only they can see. Our collective fixation on these stories acts as a communal release valve. By watching a character lose their grip on the world, we are forced to acknowledge a difficult truth: that our perception is a physical process, And like any other process, it is capable of failing.